Hello everybody, it's me again, Laura. I don't know why I said it like that, but I did, so we're just gonna move forward with it because that's what happened to us, and here we are now. Let's do it. Laura, talking, books, stuff, let's go. So, previously, I talked about all the things I disliked / hated in thrillers, so today I thought I would talk about all the things I love in thrillers, and this time I will be including recommendations because I didn't want to badmouth books, but I want to goodmouth books. That sounded gross, but I'm going to goodmouth books. I should mention I will probably be discussing spoilers. I will try to mark where there are spoilers, but some of the tropes just tip off what the spoiler is. So I'll maybe try to do a little title card, and then that way if you don't want to know it, you can go away. And if you want to know it, you can stay. So let's do it. So the first trope I really love in a thriller is a diary or a journal or letters, but I really love when it is a fake diary or fake journals or fake letters. It's something manipulative used by the character to trick perhaps another character, perhaps me the reader, perhaps both at the same time. That is sort of the perfect marriage of trickery. Yes, I don't always like author manipulation, but if they do it really well and I'm manipulated and I don't even know I'm manipulated, 2 thumbs up. So an example of this is obviously number 1, and I don't think this is a spoiler because if you haven't read this book or seen this movie by now, what are you even doing? Gone Girl. So in case you don't know, which how don't you know, because like I said, it's both a book and a movie and it came out a long time ago. Gone Girl is about a couple, married couple, Amy and Nick. They kind of have a picture perfect kind of marriage. But then one day Amy goes missing after a violent attack in her home, and Nick is distraught, and there's this big search, and it's all over the news, and everything's happening. But then they find Amy's diary, which implies their picture-perfect relationship was not so picture-perfect after all. And it reveals, spoilers here, I'll pause for 2 seconds, that there was some abuse going on in the relationship, that she was fearing for her life, and then suddenly the suspicion is pointed at Nick. But when you get to the midpoint of the book, there's just this like complete gobsmacking turn, which is that, again, spoiler, 1 second, 2 seconds, Amy's diary is a fake. She has created this fiction of abuse between her and her husband. It's all very complicated, the why and the how, etc. But that was one of the first twists in a book that I read where I was like, what? And it was really shocking. So I absolutely love the fake diary. I love the diary first in general, getting an insight into a character you might not get insight into. And then when that is turned on its head, I could not love it more. Another book that does this really well is The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This book is a meeting of Jane Eyre and Rebecca about a woman who's kind of a con artist, a little bit shady, and she is a dog walker in a fancy neighborhood. She kind of has a little crush on one of her neighbors she's walking dogs for. His wife has fairly recently gone missing under mysterious circumstances, and then they start a romance. Things happen. She starts to find out things she doesn't really want to find out about her husband, but she's also kind of manipulating him. So you get the nice flavors of Jane Eyre, Rebecca. So throughout the book, there's sprinklings of these excerpts from these letters the first wife who was missing wrote, and you get insight into what actually happened, what's actually happening, etc., etc., and it's putting all these little spicy twists on things. And then, spoiler pause, you find out she's writing these letters in order to manipulate our main character, who eventually obviously finds them. And once again, it twists everything and turns everything. And it's not a huge spoiler because this book really takes a lot of liberties from Jane Eyre and Rebecca, thank goodness. Even though I like both those stories, but you want something new. And like I can't even really spoiler it because it's got a really fun, twisty ending. So if you, like me, enjoy the fake diary, fake journal, fake letter trope, or even just the diary, letter, journal trope in general, you will love those. And I'm just going to throw in as a bonus, a movie that does this really well is The Prestige, directed by Christopher Nolan. I think it doesn't make total sense if you watch the whole movie, much like most of his films, but you can enjoy the ride, and it has a really good instance of the diary, journal, letter thing, and thus the fake diary, journal, letter thing. And it's another one of those moments that really, you're like, wah, when you get to that point in the movie. And that movie's full of other wah moments, so you should watch it. Next up, I'm going to call this thing I love the urban legends trope / spooky killers trope because it has sort of a supernatural flair to it, and it's not necessarily are urban legends, but within the world of the story, it's about urban legends and creepy things. And you're like, is it real? Is it supernatural? What's going on here? These books usually involve a dual timeline, so you see the character or characters as children and adults, so you get your flashbacks usually to the 80s or 90s, and who doesn't love a bit of 80s and 90s, and then you get the present day when all the ramifications of the creepy stuff that happened to them as kids are now basically invading and ruining their lives. So my first recommendation for the urban legend spooky killer trope is The Dead Girls Club by Damien Angelica Walters, and it's a dual timeline, and it's about a friend group involving a main character named Heather, and one of the friends in their group is named Becca. These friends, as little girls, are all obsessed with serial killers, murders, true crime, all sorts of spooky things, and they share this story amongst themselves about the Red Lady. So the Red Lady is this horrifying kind of urban legend killer, evil spirit entity thing, and Becca really, really believes in the Red Lady. Some of the other friends don't take the killer talk amongst them so seriously, but Becca really, really believes in it, and she ends up dead because of her belief in the Red Lady. Then years and years later, Heather receives a necklace in the mail that Becca was wearing the night she died, and that's when you find out that Heather killed her. That's not a spoiler, because the book is about Heather's mental breakdown, essentially, as she tries to piece together what really happened the night Becca died. Was the Red Lady involved? Was there supernatural forces at work? Did someone else know what was going on? So I really like how the urban legend / spooky killer trope makes people like question their beliefs, question reality, and I love the dual timelines and hopping back and forth and the tension. And I found the Red Lady super scary. Maybe I'm just really wimpy, but they share these very disturbing stories about the Red Lady, and also children being obsessed with spooky stuff is disturbing. It's a big disturbing pie of disturbingness, so if that appeals to you, you should definitely read The Dead Girls Club. And another great book falling into the urban legend / spooky killer genre would be The Whisper Man by Alex North. So this is about a father and son, and it's another sort of generational tale. The wife / mother has died. They moved to a new neighborhood, moved to a new house, and in this neighborhood there was a spate of abductions and killings years ago by the Whisper Man. And it's this man who comes to the windows of children and whispers to them. Just the whole thing about the man like peeking into kids' windows and whispering. Creepy that nobody found him. Creepy. Murdered children. Creepy. But eventually they catch the Whisper Man and he's in prison. Then in the present day, there is another abduction of a child, and people think maybe the Whisper Man had an accomplice. And there's detectives trying to figure out what happened. And then, of course, our main characters, the father and son, the son begins to hear whisperings. And it unravels from there. I like that there's a supernatural element at play. If you don't like when otherworldly things are happening, they don't have a main, it's not like a fantasy exactly, but there's other forces in the world that are possibly affecting the main storyline. And at the end, do you get your answers? Kinda, I don't know, but it's worth a read. For my next beloved trope, I present to you The Isolated Locale and Murder Happens. So the first recommendation I have for you here is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This is about a journalist named Lo who is invited on a luxury cruise in order to do a write-up about it. She's not supposed to go. She goes in the place of someone else, already juicy. Before she even goes on the boat, she's experienced a scary break-in situation at her apartment. And then she gets to the boat and it's a bunch of rich strangers. Rich people causing mayhem is always going to be fun. The first night on the boat, there's a party. She meets her next door neighbor because they all have their own little cabins. So before the party, she meets her neighbor. And then later that night, she witnesses the neighbor who doesn't show up to the party fall overboard. Only everyone on the ship is accounted for. So they keep sailing on. Meanwhile, our main character is sort of spiraling out, being like, who was that lady? Did I see what I thought I saw? It's very Hitchcockian. It's very readable. It's a page turner. There's a little bit at the end where it gets a little slow, but overall this is an excellent isolation trope because you're, stuck in the North Sea on a boat. What are you going to do if someone gets killed? Be stuck on a boat and try and figure it out, I guess. My next recommendation is a more recent read, The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This is about a wedding that takes place on an island and someone at the wedding ends up dead. It's multi-POV, kind of jumps around in time a bit. Everyone is suspicious. Obviously, a bunch of rich jerks having a party. They're stuck on an island because the sea is choppy, weather's bad, etc., etc. I really liked the multi-POV. It kept you guessing. Everyone was very suspicious. I questioned everyone's motives. And once again, stuck on an island. So when murder happens, what are you going to do? Because you can't get off. So if you're looking to spend a tension-filled, exciting evening on an island with a murderer, but you don't want to actually be on the island with the murderer, or a boat, either of those books would work for you. Next up, I'm going to have to go with, I would say the trope is called like book within a book, but I'm going to say story within a book because I'm giving two different recommendations. So this is when, say, a book is about another book, like a fictitious book, and you see chapters and excerpts from that book, or it's about another fictional piece of like art, like a film or whatnot, just another medium, and you get snippets about that within the larger framework. But it doesn't exist in our world, just the world of the book. And I just love this. I like reading one book, so why wouldn't I want to read two books in one book? And I like watching movies, so why wouldn't I want to watch a movie within a book? So my first recommendation for this is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I love Riley Sager. This is actually probably my least favorite of his books, though I still really, really enjoyed this book, so that's not really saying a lot if I say this is my least favorite, because they're all still my favorites. So this book is about a woman named Maggie who, as a child, spent some time in a supposedly haunted house with her mother and father, and weird shit went down. Her father ends up writing this nonfiction book about their House of Horrors time, and years later, when Maggie's an adult, she doesn't really know exactly what happened during this haunted period of her life or what actually went down in the house, though she believes her father, more or less. But she goes back to the house after finding out they haven't sold it after her father's died to restore it. She's a home renovator, restorer, whatever. And then weird crap starts happening in the house again. And it includes excerpts from her father's book. And it's funny because it's not a really well-written book, but it's not meant to be because it is one of those nonfiction true horror stories. It's fun because the book has this old-fashioned, authentic, cheesy nonfiction book feel to it. So it's sprinkled throughout the book in a really fun way. So you're flipping between reading the excerpts from this cheesy, how many times can I say cheesy? This cheesy horror book, and then Maggie's real life experience in the present day in the house. And it's spooky and it's fun, and I really enjoyed the interplay between the two stories and finding out what really happened in the past and what's really happening in the future. I thought a few things didn't quite work, but overall it's a really fun read, and if you like the story within a story, it really delivers. My other recommendation for the story within a story, in this case it's a film within a story, is Night Film by, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, Marissa Pessel. Not exactly sure. This book came out ages ago, but I loved it at the time. I'm thinking it would hold up. This book is about a young woman named Ashley who's found dead in an abandoned warehouse in New York, and they rule her death as suicide. But the investigative journalist who looks into it, a man named Scott, thinks there's more going on, especially once he finds out her father is this mysterious reclusive filmmaker named Stanislaus Cordova, I believe is his name, and he has a history of making these unsettling and creepy films that all have these bizarre stories attached to them, and the book includes little excerpts from interviews and articles and websites, and I think even there's snippets of the film, like the scripts and things. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I think I remember. And it's really creepy and it's really immersive, so I thought it was a wonderful way to do the fictitious lore about a film within a book. And the director, the father, hasn't been seen in like 30 years, so Scott's trying to figure out what went down, where is he, and in the process also kind of ruins his own life in many ways. And the ending is pretty wacky from what I can recall, but in a good way, in a way I enjoyed. And I feel like if you enjoy like David Lynch movies, this is kind of like a Lynchian book. Again, I read it many years ago, but that's kind of what I remember, having this ominous Lynchian feel about it. So if you want to do movie within a book, watch/read Night Film. Next up, I'm going to call this category serial killer in the family. Usually there's an element of black comedy to the ones I like. I'm interested in like the traumatized family members, and I do like those books too, but the ones I'm recommending go for a little more ridiculous /funny/over the top bent. So the first one I'm going to recommend is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyankan Braithwaite. I hope I'm saying her name right. This is about a woman named Coretta, I hope I'm saying that right, whose sister is a serial killer, and Coretta always cleans up after her and helps her because she doesn't want her sister to go to prison. Except then one day her sister becomes interested in the doctor that Coretta has a crush on, and men have a tendency to end up dead around her sister, so she gets worried. This was a really funny read. It was really quick, just a real dynamite read. If I'm gonna say dynamite read, it's gonna be for My Sister the Serial Killer. Definitely pick it up if you want a serial killer in the family. That's kind of funny. My next recommendation is going to be My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. It's a husband and wife who, they have a happy little family. They have 2 kids, and they kill for fun to keep their marriage spicy. It's told from first person, from the husband's point of view, and talks about how they sort of select their victims and the process they go to, and it can be really gory and kind of gross and kind of disturbing, but at the same time it's just a little kind of funny because it's an over-the-top idea. It doesn't totally gel at the end, but I still think it's a fun read if, again, you're into that serial killer in the family thing. And this one has the complex relationships involving the children, because that becomes very interesting. And then, do the husband and wife turn on each other? Are they supportive of each other? Does it keep their marriage spicy? You'll have to read to find out. And I do recommend it with the reminder that the end doesn't totally work, I suppose, on a logic level, but I think it's still worth a read. And my last recommendation, this is actually not really funny at all. This one was like straight up drama and disturbing, but I thought very good, is Good Me, Bad Me by Allie Land. This book is about a girl named Millie whose mother's a serial killer / abductor of children. Millie decides to turn her in to stop her because she's a good me doing that. Then she's sent to live with a new rich family, starts at this fancy school, but they have problems of their own, and their daughter is not very nice to Millie. The more Millie is pressed, the more you have to question, is she like her mother? Yes or no? Is she going to be a bad me? This one's just super dark. Don't remember it being funny. I listened to it a couple years ago as an audiobook with one of my favorite audiobook narrators, Imogen Church. She always does a great job. And this one just had me gripped from beginning to end and is a more serious take on serial killer in the family, so check it out. Next up, another trope I love is going to be rich people being jerks. This is just thrillers wherein there are really rich people doing rich people things, living in cool rich people houses, getting into rich people trouble. Sometimes there's a not rich person who's making trouble for them, or they're making trouble for not rich people. I just like to see all the kooky lifestyles and love reading about that stuff. Here are some recs. First up is Pretty Things by Janelle Brown. This is about a woman named Nina, a man named Lachlan, and a woman named Vanessa. Nina and Lachlan are con artists. Nina's mom was a con artist, and they decide to con Vanessa, who is this Instagram influencer heiress who lives in Lake Tahoe. She's running her mansion as this Airbnb and has an extra little apartment, so they're gonna go up there, set her up, try and get her fortune. However, there's more to what's going on than you see, obviously. Vanessa has dark secrets, Nina's has dark secrets, none of them are exactly who they seem. It gets real twisty and turny, and you basically find out perhaps these people knew each other in the past. Maybe they did. Maybe there are some grudges being held and some revenging needing to get done. Just saying, if you want to see rich people maybe getting their just desserts, it might be in here. I don't know. You'll have to read and find out. But you definitely get beautiful mansion, beautiful rich lady, social media influencer, bad stuff's happening to everyone. I will say with the structure of the book, because it is hopping back and forth and it's different points of view, that gets a little teeny bit repetitive at the end in some ways, but still worth giving it a shot. So my next recommendation for the Rich Jerks category is going to be Necessary People by Anna Pitoniak. So this is about 2 friends, Stella and Violet. Stella is from a wealthy family, kind of doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. She meets Violet in college. Violet is more of a working class gal who knows she has to work hard and can't float through life, so she has goals, she has a mission, she wants to succeed. After they graduate, Violet gets a job in cable news in New York and rises through the ranks, and all the while Stella is still kind of aimless but doing cool, fancy rich people things, and they're living together in Stella's fancy apartment that she's letting Violet stay in for a cut rate price. And Stella becomes jealous of Violet and her ambition and her success. So Stella decides to get a job. She chooses to become a newscaster at the same cable news network as Violet, but quickly becomes an anchor kind of star. And she gets all the glamour and the glory and is benefiting from Violet's hard work, who's like stuck behind the scenes and is no longer kind of getting what she wants to be getting because Stella's getting all the goods. As the tension between them increases, Violet goes to extreme measures to try and right the situation as she sees fit. This is full of tension and interesting disparities between the very wealthy and the not wealthy and the opportunities afforded to each. And there's great friendship drama, and it's really a spicy meatball. I highly recommend it. There's a little bit of something I don't like at the end exactly, but again, I don't want to do super spoilers. But if you want to see rich people being jerks, once again, probably maybe getting what they deserve, perhaps, you should check out Necessary People. Last favorite trope I'm going to recommend, though I have a few more, so maybe I'll do yet another video, is going to be obsession. I tend to like female friendship obsession. This is self-explanatory, involves one person becoming obsessed with another person, involving themselves in their life, looking into every little detail, perhaps some light stalking, perhaps some heavy stalking, and real bad stuff eventually goes down. The first one I will be recommending is Friends Like These by Sarah Alderson. This is about two colleagues, Lizzie and Becca. Becca is fabulous and glamorous and has it all, or so Lizzie thinks, and she's jealous of her. Meanwhile, Lizzie is opposite of Becca, or so she thinks in her head. Then one day at a company Christmas party, Becca falls down the stairs, gets horrifically injured, and retreats from life as we know it. Lizzie thinks, finally Becca's been taken down a peg or two, until she sees Becca on social media looking gorgeous and perfect with her perfect husband. Lizzie can't believe it because she thought that was the end of Becca, but Becca's like happy with her husband and has a baby. So Lizzie writes this nasty message to her friend about how ugly Becca's baby is, but then, she's accidentally sent it to Becca herself. Things snowball from there. Lizzie's obsession grows. Her stalker skills are put to good use. Things get weird as she tries to find out what really happened to Becca and how she still lives her perfect life after her grand fall. This was really fun. There are a couple little things I don't really love about it, but overall, I read it, I think, in one sitting or two sittings. And it's a lot of fun if you're into the stalker, influencer, is social media reality? Obviously not, but like, why do people put things on social media? All that fun stuff. Give it a read. Next up for the obsession category, I'm going to recommend The Secrets She Keeps by Michael Robotham? Not sure how to pronounce it. It's about a woman named Agatha who is pregnant, working as a part-time stock person at a grocery store. Her life isn't fantastic. The father of her baby won't return her calls. Meanwhile, she notices this rich, perfect woman in the neighborhood named Megan, who seemingly has a perfect life. Agatha finds out that Megan is pregnant after they have a little run-in at the grocery store, and Agatha becomes a little obsessed with Megan and trying to befriend her and sharing their pregnancies. This is one wacky book. I don't want to say too much, but Agatha is obsessed. Her life is not necessarily what it seems, neither is Megan's. Some pretty crazy stuff goes down. Definitely worth a read. It's very soapy, but I happen to like soap. Keeps your hands clean. And so if you like a soapy, over-the-top kind of stalker story, this is the one for you. And last up for my recommendations for obsession, it's not a female, and it's not a book, but it's a great movie about obsession, which is Misery, which was a book actually by Stephen King, but I haven't read it. But the movie is wonderful. It's about an author named Sheldon who gets into a car wreck and is rescued by a nurse named Annie. They're unfortunately snowbound. Annie's a bit obsessed with his books, and she gets a little upset when she finds out he's going to kill off her favorite character. And this is obsession at its worst. So I feel like people know this movie, but if you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it. Maybe I'll give it a read and see if the book measures up to the movie. But I mean, how do you measure up to Kathy Bates? I don't think you can. Yeah, those were my faves. I have more faves, but I think this is a good stopping point. We stopped on Kathy Bates. No finer stopping point, national treasure. So that's where I'm going to leave you with thoughts of Kathy Bates. So I will see you next time with another video about reading or writing or something fun. Okay, bye.